In this episode, Landlines travels to Loveland, Colorado to visit Todd Olander of Olander Farms and Root Shoot Malting. Todd and his family protected their farm with a conservation easement in 2022. We're also joined by Colorado Open Lands Senior Conservation Project Manager Carmen Farmer, who has been our resident expert on Northern Colorado land and water conservation since 2016. Todd and Carmen discussed challenges for young farmers, regenerative practices on Olander Farms, and how to balance the need for growth with the need for a sustainable agriculture industry in Northern Colorado. I'm Leslie Volker, and this is Landlines. Todd, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks. Carmen, thank you for making time for this.
Absolutely.
Okay, here we are. We're at Olander Farms. Todd, tell me about your farming operation.
We're in Loveland, Colorado here, and our farm is about 1,500 acres. We farm barley, wheat, rye, corn, and alfalfa. The alfalfa is mostly going to dairy farms in the area, and all the small grains, so barley, wheat, rye, and also corn are running through the malt house that we started in 2016. So going on 9 years there.
Tell us what a malt house is for folks that don't know.
Okay, so a malt house is basically creating the grains that are used in distilling and brewing. So we're basically taking the grain and wetting it and then germinating it and then drying it back down to make the starch available for the brewing and distilling world. So malt is the main ingredient in beer, and it's also a pretty large percentage in whiskeys and other distilled products.
So you sell your malt to brewers?
We do. So we work with about 120 brewers in Colorado, probably, 12 different distilleries in Colorado, and then also, maybe about 15 to 20 just throughout the nation. So about 150 customers total.
So you do distribute out of state?
We do.
Okay, that's great. And what made you want to get into agriculture?
Good question. So I question that all the time. No. So I grew up on the farm. So the farm is going on 100 years now. That's been in our family. So next year will be 100 years, will be a centennial farm. So I guess it's in my blood. I am the last one that's actually working on the farm out of our family. At a young age, I was involved in the farm quite a lot. So I would help out my parents all the time. Before I could even really touch the clutch or a brake or anything or or the steering wheel, I was kind of driving a truck in the field and helping out with that and helping out with harvest as much as I could. And I really enjoyed that. And by the time I got through high school, I had my own combine harvester. So I was combining for all of the neighbors around, mostly combining barley. And then I swore barley off at that age because it's so itchy. And I'm never doing that again. But I ended up going to college at CSU and sold the combine and was planning on never coming back to the farm. I was just like, I'm done with this. I'm out of here. Then I went into the construction management field and did an internship there, which was kind of a requirement for the degree. And it was 6 months, and it was during the summer. And so that's really the only summer that I've actually spent away from the farm. And that's really what brought me back, is because I missed it, which I really wasn't expecting that to happen. Yeah. So then as soon as I graduated, I came back to the farm and kind of joined the operation and been helping out ever since. So that was in 2006. So almost 20 years now.
The rest is
crazy.
History.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue. I was doing a little digging, and I found that the average age of the American farmer is 57. And the U.S. Senate Committee on Aging says that it's the profession in the U.S. with the highest average age. So there's no other job in the United States where the average age of the current worker is higher. Why do you think, Todd, that you are, there's so few in your cohort? If I don't presume to guess your age, but you gave us some kind of ballparks with your graduation year. So, what are the barriers? Why aren't there more young farmers out there?
It's hard. there's not a lot of money in it, I guess. I mean, there's other professions where you can actually make make more money, I guess, is what it comes down to. And it's hard. Like there's like super big barriers, especially if you're like a first time farmer, first generation farmer. You have to have equipment and land, and both of those things are like pretty unobtainable for a lot of that generation. So it's basically just kids of these 57-year-olds or older that are returning to the farm and kind of passing down that operation. And it's hard to support a lot of different families in agriculture just because of the return on what you're actually growing.
And Todd, can you speak sort of to, particularly in the context of northern Colorado? You mentioned barriers, particularly around land. Water is a whole nother issue in terms of availability, cost, and then even just leasing land and not knowing if you've got long-term access to leased land, if it's year to year. Those are some of the challenges that you're sort of alluding to. The reason I ask it is one of the things that we at Colorado Open Lands are encountering with our farmers and producers up here is trying to make sure that they have affordable access to land to be able to grow food up here and help support our rural economies. And so I think you all, your family who's been here for a long time and sort of been on the front lines of that. And I just didn't know if you could maybe elaborate a little bit more on some of the changes that you're seeing just outside, your window here around land changing over.
Yeah, I know it's changed a ton since I was a wee child, I guess, around here. So the road just outside the farm here is highway, and when I was younger, we could just ride our bike up and down the road and hardly see any cars. We've seen a ton of change and a ton of more people around here. I've kind of seen our personal farm actually get divided up, or the family's farm get divided up over time too. So that's another reason why I think protecting farmland is super important. So there just wasn't like a very great plan in place as far as the estate goes, and like kind of passing it on to the next generation, which would have been my dad. So the farm has been divided up. It was about, 300 to 400 acres, kind of working our way to the east here. And that got sold off. And then my dad actually had to buy back the acreage that we're currently sitting on. So that got divided up in like 2000 or so. So I think that having a good plan for these farmers that are at that age and they want to kind of see that continue to be farmland, there needs to be a discussion that's had, because a lot of the farmers even around here don't have kind of the younger generation that are planning on returning to the farm. So I don't know what's going to happen to those acreages. And I don't know if a lot of them know about conservation easements and like the ability to actually get some cash to retirement or to retire on, if that's something that is an option by using the conservation easement as a tool to basically retire and protect your land, and then have someone else that can continue to farm that piece of property and give them an opportunity. So I think that's a really great tool to like even let the next generation work on the land and not have it become developed, because and then the farmer, I mean, they're not going to see it obviously when they pass away, but they can feel good about knowing that the land that they've been kind of living off of and their family's been living off of for 100 or 150 years. A lot of them that homesteaded in this area, like, continues to be farmland. So I think that's something that more farmers should be exploring.
Absolutely. And Carmen, I want to turn to you for a minute. So you've worked with probably dozens of farmers in this area, at least at this point in your career with COL. Is that something that you've seen a lot of? Like, I think what Todd was alluding to was the generational shift where there's, a farming family and they might have 4 kids and maybe one of them wants to stay in ag and the other 3 want to sell the land, and just the financial challenges around that. Is that something that you've seen a lot of?
Yeah, and each situation with each family is very different, and there are a whole host of different avenues that folks can go down. Sometimes, historically, we've seen situations with multiple heirs where they've had to sell off some of the water to satisfy some of the heirs that aren't interested in farming, and so we end up with some farms out here that are water short. We've got other situations, like in Todd's situation, where they've looked at the conservation easement as a tool to help them provide for that farm to be available to that next generation, or maybe someone else that wants to buy farmland, because you take a property that's got a ton of development potential, you do the conservation easement, the family's able to extract some of the value out of it, and then you've got an easement encumbered farm that's someone that's looking, a new farmer or someone that needs a little bit of extra land, scale up a bit, they can actually afford to purchase that easement encumbered farm. And so it's a tool that can help on both sides of that equation. And so we have a lot of conversations with families up here, and there's a whole host of them that don't necessarily have heirs. And they're, farmers like Todd who are looking for additional land to farm, and they're ready to do it. But it's not at a price point. If you've got, development value for, 100 houses or an Amazon building or something like that. And so that's one of those places where we're talking to families to just see if there are opportunities where we can help them with that transition.
I think it's so important that we provide a tool that maybe allows for a little bit of balance, because everybody needs a place to live, but we also need to eat, and we need to drink beer and other products that you all make. So you touched on this a little bit, Todd, but why did your family decide to pursue the conservation easement?
Lots of different reasons, I suppose. So, like I mentioned before, we started the malt house in 2016 and put that malt house on a farm property, and we're like, well, we're never going to do anything else with this, because like we built the malt house as a tool really to kind of stay in northern Colorado, get more value off of what we're actually growing. There's no reason to do anything else with the land, in my opinion, I guess, besides farm it and use it as a tool to feed the malt house, and try to get some value out of that increased value by malting it, I suppose, and kind of going and like vertically integrating the entire operation. So that gives us access. It's difficult, and a lot of farmers don't have that, right? A lot of farmers have to sell their crops as a commodity. And I think looking outside the box a little bit and vertically integrating your businesses, which seems like there's more people thinking about doing that, or more farmers, I guess, about like maybe selling beef or just kind of adding value to whatever they're actually growing besides just corn and soybeans in the majority of the country. So yeah, by vertically integrating your businesses, it's just definitely difficult. Like I said, just because like you can create the product. I mean, that's really not the hard part. The malting part was, pretty difficult in the beginning, but now we have it kind of dialed in. But like, it's just the sales of the product and reaching the people that you're wanting to contact. And we use like social media, just a lot of just like boots on the ground. We have 2 full-time people just continually like hitting different states, like New Mexico, Wyoming, kind of people that are in our region. And then also just like continually going into Colorado and just trying to convince people that using Colorado grain is important. And it adds value to your company by supporting and keeping the money local. That was kind of a roundabout reason to, I guess, by deciding to put a conservation easement on it. I mean, it's important to me to keep this landscape the way that it is to an extent, right? I know there's going to be just more and more changes that are happening, but like there needs to be some open space. I just don't want it to see continual developments just everywhere. And that, I guess I've explained that enough.
Well, I think just to add on to that, we've got some of the best soils, really senior water rights up here. This is a really important place to grow food and fiber, and just being thoughtful about how we grow in northern Colorado and not eating up our best, most productive farmland that much of our economy relies upon, and all the open space benefits that are a part of that, the community separators, the wildlife habitat that's really imperative or important that these farms help protect, and the corridors, particularly as we go from the mountains to the plains and that intersection. and making sure that we've got that space for the four-leggeds to move around. And so all of these ancillary benefits that come along with that.
It is a really good area for water rights right in this region, right? And it's a really good place to grow small grains because just the cool nights and just the environment that exists being so close to the mountains. So there's just a small pocket in this northern Colorado that grows really high quality small grains. And yeah, that's another reason to protect it. That's why Coors set up their operation in this region, is because it's a fertile barley growing area and can't lose that completely. So, in my opinion, yeah, it's exactly. It's worth the sacrifice.
Yeah. And Carmen tells me you've gotten into more regenerative practices in recent years, maybe your whole tenure. Can you tell us a little bit about what those are, how you employ them, and what benefits there are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've been doing regenerative practices for probably really extensive, I guess, practices for probably the last 5 years, but we've been kind of dabbling in it for probably the last 8. Crop rotation is just super important, which a lot of farmers just aren't doing with the best value in this area is to sell to dairies. So a lot of growers are just growing corn. And corn. So you just, as cow feed. Yeah, exactly. So that's the main portion of a cow's diet is corn. And so that's why the farmers are growing it. So you can't really blame them for that. But that really doesn't give you any sort of crop rotation if you're just continually growing corn. That's kind of besides the point. But so the regenerative practices are 6 different practices. It's basically protecting the land or protecting the soil. So keeping armor on the soil. So that's basically trying to make sure that there's some sort of residue on the soil as many days as possible, so that you're preventing either wind erosion or water erosion. And it also just kind of maintains the temperature, so you're not getting big spikes of heat or really cold temperatures during the winter. So it just kind of helps even that out, and which helps the environment for the microbes to kind of continue to evolve and grow. The next one is keep a living root as many days as possible. So it's kind of hard to do in Colorado because it freezes and everything dies for a certain period of time. But the one way to do that is by using cover crops. So after our barley harvests, we are planting cover crops, which is a mixture of a lot of radishes, a lot of turnips, hairy vetch, and peas, and those are both legumes. So they're fixing nitrogen, so actually putting fertilizer back into the soil.
And sorry to interrupt. You plant these things not to. What do I want to say?
Not as a cash crop.
Not as a cash crop.
Not as a cash crop. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just for to keep the soil happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just trying to keep the soil covered and then something living as many days as possible. So the more photosynthesis is kind of what I envision is the most important thing, is just having photosynthesis happening as many days as possible throughout the year. So if you've harvested a field of barley, so you do that in July or so, and then you just kind of let it sit out there. And most people will actually remove the straw. So we're keeping the straw. We just use a stripper head on our combine. So all it does is take the heads off and it leaves everything else in the field. So that's leaving carbon in the field. So that's going to be some residue that will continually break down. Basically just making sure that you're protecting the soil.
And improving it, right?
And improving it, exactly.
Yeah, the organic material in it, the water holding potential. Those are sort of some of the overall goals as you're stewarding this farm and trying to look after it and increase the microbe activity and those kind of things, right? Is that?
Yeah. So I guess by having more living roots in the soil, you're basically using those roots as straws when it rains. So if you think about it, when the rain's just coming down on a bunch of roots, it's just going to soak right in, and it's not going to erode or wash off because the roots are kind of holding everything in place. But if you have a field that's just dirt, dry dirt or whatnot, those big droplets of water just basically hit the soil I guess it is soil, but mostly it's just dirt. And it just seals that ground. It makes it so that like there's a thin layer and then the water just runs off.
Yeah.
Or it takes the soil with it. So, so that's super important. We've seen that as a result of these practices of just like water infiltration happening like pretty rapidly. Like you can get some very large rains up to an inch and our soils just soak them up, and all the other fields that you can look around are just running off the field. So,
which that's ultimately going to set you up better with the water content or moisture in that soil during the irrigation season, and potentially help you out with efficiencies or having to apply less water.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, a lot of the reasons that we decided to go down that route is the water scarcity that's going to continue to happen in this region. So I've been lucky my entire life. We've really never been water short. But coming into next year, unless we get like quite a lot of snow, like it's going to be pretty tight next, like very, very tight. Maybe not even have the option to grow corn next year. Mm-hmm. Because the handy reservoir that we get a lot of our water from, we didn't get any fill right this year. So it's just been continually getting lower and lower. And so we're probably going to be at like 30% or something going into the winter. So we need to fill it up 70%. And then we didn't fill any last year. So, I mean, that's only 30% of the water then that's left for next year's crop. So, so, I mean, having all these practices in place ahead of time is one of my main concerns, is just building resiliency in the soil so that when you get those large rain events, it doesn't just wash off. When you get really hot temperatures, which are continually getting higher and higher temperatures around here too, then like the soil's being protected by either the residue that we've left behind after harvest or those living plants. So another principle, I guess, is livestock integration. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when we have the opportunity, we will graze those cover crops that we planted. So you're actually getting some value out of that. Cows come in and then they're fertilizing it. They're basically recycling that and pooping and peeing, I guess, on the ground and recycling those nutrients that were in the cover crops to begin with. So we're doing like a combination of either the fields where we graze, or we just actually leave the cover crops out there and then let the microbes kind of start breaking those down throughout the winter and the spring, so that they're ready to plant in too.
It's a really holistic approach to it throughout the year. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And on the drive on the way up, Carmen and I were talking about how regenerative practices can sometimes take more resources and time at the beginning, but the goal is that those resources are you're enriching your resource so that I put it so much better in the car. Carmen, help me out here.
Well, yeah, ultimately, you're sort of building in some resilience into the system, and then potentially impacting yields in the future, hopefully, with some of those things. But I'm not the farmer.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is, and I think the easy way to kind of visualize it is that you're trying to compost the top few layers of soil over time. Like if you get your system working properly, you have enough carbon there, and it just starts to continually break down, and you're composting, you're making compost on the top layer of soil, and then it's going to just like continually work its way down. The healthier and healthier it becomes. So then you can reduce your fertilizer inputs and things too. So yeah, I guess one other important thing on the. So I think we're probably at number maybe 4 that I've talked about. So it is no-till, not disturbing the soil. So that's very, very important as well, because every time you come in and like break up everything, you have to start over. So
all those root systems and things that are all interconnected.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all the earthworm activity and things, you like just destroy their home and then they have to start all over. So, so we've done that as much as possible on as many acres as we can. So, it's been a long journey. It's not easy. And I understand why farmers don't want to do that, because you have such a low tolerance of risk already. I mean, farmers have, huge risk every year, right? I mean, we're dealing with the weather, we're dealing with just uncertainty of the markets and things. So you kind of want to use what works or what you think works, and it's hard to kind of stray away from that. So I understand why farmers don't do it, but they need to, in my opinion. They need to just at least try a little bit here, a little bit there. So, I mean, we've had a soil health day, like demo day here this last summer, just trying to bring some farmers in the area to just introduce them to what we're up to, and hopefully get some sort of change happening here.
Yeah. We kind of touched on climate change, but what kind of effects of climate change are you seeing out here, and how are you planning around it?
Well, I mean, basically it comes back to all those regenerative practices that that we are implementing, and the scarcity of water, and just the uncertainty. So it seems like everything's kind of extreme these days. So it's either extreme heat or extreme drought or extreme flooding. Those are kind of your options, it seems like, these days. So by building resiliency in the soil, you're going to pretty much take advantage of a lot of those things that are occurring, especially like the big rainstorms, and then just protecting the soil and keeping the temperatures low. So everything pretty much dies when you have bare soil out there. All your microbes are just being destroyed because it's hotter than like the actual temperature outside. It's probably like, I don't know, about 5 to 10 degrees hotter than the actual temperature. So if it's 90, then it's like 100 on the soil. If you go out into fields that are all covered, it's 30 degrees lower. So it's pretty interesting, in my opinion. So that's what I geek out on more than anything these days, is just what are the things that we can do to actually see some change and make sure that we're farming here in another 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had a pretty big hailstorm last year. Is that right?
Yeah.
And tell me, how does that affect your year? I mean, how do you come back from that?
I guess you'd come back from it from just knowing that that's something that can occur, I guess. And it'll probably take a few years really to make back that revenue. Yeah. Probably 5 years of of no hail to kind of make up for that loss. I mean, we have hail insurance on some of our crops, but I mean, that just doesn't really cover what you've actually lost. So we had to source some barley from another farmer. So that's just the reality of it, is just that we have to source grain from other places, especially if it's supposed to go through our malting facility. And the corn was supposed to go like for bourbon production as well. So I've never had a field of corn be completely destroyed. Like we lost 100% of it, and the barley we lost 100% of too. So that typically doesn't happen. So corn, we never insure our corn, actually, because we've never had a storm that's that catastrophic. So typically you'll get maybe like a 30% reduction or something, and usually like your insurance wouldn't even pay out very well if you have a 30% reduction. It's not really worth the actual premium. Mm-hmm. So you just keep going.
Does it help to, I mean, you mentioned you guys farm 1,500 acres or so, maybe more, and that's spread out, right? It's on different ground. Does it help to have, not just your farm operation in one place, but kind of spread out amongst this area in different areas?
It definitely does. Yeah, that we would say that's the reason why. I mean, it'd be great to have one contiguous 1,500 acre farm, but that's not feasible in this area. But
well, and I guess it's a double-edged sword, because when you are spread out like that, moving equipment around as farmland becomes more fragmented up here, that's a huge challenge for you guys as well, right? And trying to actually get combines and other equipment around to those farms, and all the more reason to try to keep some of this land up here intact, so you're not having to go through neighborhoods to get to a field and those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a challenge to kind of move equipment around, but another part of the regenerative things, I mean, there's just tons of benefits, is that you're using your tractor way less. We're using, I don't know, probably 50% less fuel, because you're just doing so many less passes across the field. You're not doing any sort of tillage. Basically, all we do is plant or harvest, and that's it. So, I mean, that just helps as well, just as far as like moving equipment around. But yeah, being spread out is helpful when a big storm comes through and it just targets one certain area and you didn't lose everything. So, that's a benefit for sure, but it is also a challenge.
Can I just ask you a question on that note? You all lease certain farms, but that's subject to the owner, extending leases for you all. You invest in those farms, you invest in irrigation equipment. Have you experienced instances where you've lost leases, lost scale because of development, an owner deciding they're going to sell their property for other reasons? And is that a continuing, ongoing challenge for you all in your operation up here?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, so we're really close to I-25, and that I-25 corridor is prime for development. So we used to have quite a few farms that were east of I-25, and we currently don't have any now. Some of that is choice, where we just don't want to try to take our equipment that way. There's just way more traffic over there. So, but another reason is that we had 130 acres over there, and it's now probably, 75 homes, and they're still continuing to build on that. Another farm has the Buc-ee's that was built on it, but we still farm a good portion of it, and then Buc-ee's is in the corner. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the farms that we were farming that are east side 25 are developed now, and there's no agriculture happening on those anymore.
And then some of the other ones that you farm have been protected with conservation easements,
for sure.
Right? So there's a level of certainty, at least hopefully, for you all in that, particularly when you're making huge investments in things like a value-added production facility for malting barley, knowing that you've got that baseline of farmland to be able to rely upon to feed that malt house, I would imagine is pretty important.
It's very important, yeah. Yeah, that's some definite uncertainty still. I mean, thank goodness the Wagners decided to conserve that farm over there. That's about 400 acres, but all the other farms are not conserved, but most of them are not owned by development companies anymore. I think there's only that one farm that Buc-ee's sits on that's actually owned by a development company. Otherwise, it's all kind of local families. And I'm sure they're trying to decide what they're going to do with it in the future. And we've had conversations with a lot of them about conservation easements and what they're going to do with it in the future. And it'd be great if we were able to afford purchasing those properties and either putting a conservation easement on it or buying them with a conservation easement on it. But it's kind of unobtainable at this point.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I suspect, is the value of the water associated with some of those farms. Up here in northern Colorado, we have a lot of municipal pressure on our water rights, not just locally, but from the Denver metro area, where large water providers are buying agricultural water rights up here and taking them out of the community. And that's driving up the cost of farmland, and something that, Todd, I think you're very familiar with in trying to navigate not just competition for farmland or for residential development, but also water development by communities outside of this locale. And so it's a unique storm up here that I know that you and your family and others are sort of trying to navigate at this point.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming at times, but you gotta think about the wins and know that you're making progress year by year, and hopefully that progress just continues to evolve, and you end up with the farmland that's necessary, and the families decide that that's important to them as well.
Yeah. And you and your family have been big advocates for conservation easements as a tool. And I think it means so much more coming from peer to peer than it does from us, telling farmers and ranchers that they should consider this. You even made a film about your conservation easement. Can you talk a little bit about your work around, I don't know if you would call it advocacy or what, but why you do it, what that means to you?
Mm-hmm. I think it's very important. Like I mentioned earlier, just the landscape that's continually changing around here. I would hate. We still have dirt roads, so and that's a welcome sight to me. And I would love for those roads to continue to be dirt for 50 to 100 years. I know it's probably not feasible, but I mean, those are the roads that I drive on, like, more than anything are the dirt roads. And I just really want that to be protected. It's just such a beautiful area. It's where I've grown up. I've tooled around on a 4-wheeler many days, just kind of driving around those fields throughout my childhood, and I just don't want to see it change. So that's why it's just really important to me.
Yeah. And if any of you are driving those dirt roads in the Loveland, Berthoud area and you see somebody hauling a big piece of farm equipment, wave hi to Todd. It might be him.
Yeah, don't always tell us we're number one. That's fine.
So we're gonna shift gears just a little bit. What do you wish more city folk, urban people knew about farming?
Well, that there's actually young people involved, and it's not just the guy with the pitchfork kind of walking around. I know that kind of agriculture, or at least modern day agriculture, can be demonized a little, and that's just like very small percentage of the farms that are kind of in that realm. I think a lot of them, I think it's, 85 to 90% of the farms are still family farms. Mm. And a lot of them are kind of on the same scale that we are, just kind of like trying to provide the best food and the best products and fiber and things like that for pretty much the world. Because the world relies on American agriculture for lots of different things. I do think that agriculture can do better as well. The generation, my dad's generation, I guess, there's just so much change that happened. There's so much technology that occurred, and they were told that this is kind of what you should do, and it worked. And so how can you blame them to decide not to use this technology that's kind of working, and didn't know that like kind of the ill effects that were going to actually happen by using some of that technology. That generation there's no fault of them for kind of using all that technology to kind of increase their yields and put agriculture in the position that it's in these days. So, but I think there's kind of a revolution that's happening, or maybe not a revolution, but like a wave of younger farmers in my age that are starting to think about things differently. Because even agriculture has been taught like that in universities as well. Just like use chemistry and the tools that are available from like either big seed companies or like large chemical companies, and that's worked for a long time. But now I think farmers are starting to see like those changes in their soil and their changes in their like crop production, where they're just having to add more inputs, and seeing like just huge, we're seeing it this year, like around here, even like just with the lack of water and irrigation and things like that. And just like the crops aren't responding to a lot of these inputs that farmers were using. And so, so I think that, that there is a lot of positive things that are coming out of that. People are starting to think for themselves. People are starting to recognize that there's different ways to do it. And maybe that's just the circle that I follow. And I think that there's lots of hope in that. And I think it's really gaining some momentum. And I think that, that's going to be the future of agriculture, is kind of what we're doing. And you just need some people that like really stand out. And that's what we're trying to do, is to like try to educate people as much as possible. If it's either a farmer or not a farmer, just that like agriculture is not bad. Like we're trying to do the best that we can with the tools that we have. And, and we're just going to continue to get better. And I think that like, even in some of the large, like magazines and things like that, of farming magazines, like there's more information out there about like regenerative ag and doing things differently, and like really getting farmers to kind of start thinking about different ways of doing it. So, anyways, that's a long explanation of what city folks should do, are thinking about, but they just need to know that like there's lots of different places you can source your food. Besides going to a supermarket, you can like support your local ag. There's lots of people selling like grass-fed beef or home-grazed beef and eggs, and there's lots of smaller CSA farms that are doing really hard work to grow great produce. So yeah, I guess thank a farmer, because you're eating food is really what it comes down to. And we're going to continue to get better at what we're doing, even though like there's been an evolution of maybe some things that agriculture shouldn't be involved in, I suppose.
So the industry continues to evolve.
It does. And I think I hope we're on an upward trend as far as like those practices that farmers are starting to adapt. Yeah. So we'll continue to tell people about like where their food comes from as much as possible, even though like it's most of what we're growing is going into alcohol. So
there's a lot of alcohol kids in Colorado.
It's true. Yes. But I really don't want to drink beer that's not produced with our malt, in my opinion, these days. So
yeah,
I don't know.
So I feel like sometimes in, the conservation world where Carmen and I work, there's an attitude among some people that there's, farmers and ranchers, and then there's environmentalists, and they're enemies, they're at odds. But what I've learned in this career and talking to farmers and ranchers like yourself, it's you all are some of the best stewards of land because your livelihood's tied to it and you love it. You live it every day. So there's a lot more synchronicity than I think some city folk. and as somebody who lives in Denver and counts myself as city folk, then is obvious to them sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, people are just really disconnected from their food, and they should go visit a farm if they can, like, or work at a farm or do something, like that gets their hands dirty and like actually see where your food's actually coming from. I think that's super important. So don't just go to a pumpkin patch, So I mean, there's lots of people that do that, but I guess that's a great first step. So
no offense to our pumpkin patch producers out there.
What's the most fun thing you get to do out here every day?
And this will sound corny, but it's just really looking at the fields and watching things grow is really actually watching the cover crops grow is really the most fascinating thing that I get to see, in my opinion, because there are these crops that we've never grown before. Like I never even heard of some of the names. And so you're just like, well, I don't even know what that is. I wonder what that is. And then, I don't know, just digging in the soil and looking at what the root structure is and things. I mean, that sounds super stupid, but I mean, every day irrigation is like kind of a pain in the butt. I mean, but something that you have to do every day. So I'm making the rounds around like most of the acreages every single morning and every single night, making sure that irrigation is working properly. So I'm really just kind of observing is what I like to do. And especially when you're starting to see change, where you're seeing lots more earthworms, you're seeing lots more insects, you're seeing lots more birds. I mean, it's just pretty cool to see that like they're navigating, or these things are just like gravitating towards your properties that you're actually taking care of.
More biodiversity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some of those practices.
Yep, exactly. So more wildlife too, which isn't always great in my opinion, but that's, we have a herd of elk that there's like 27 of them that live at one of our fields, and they're not doing our corn any favors. That's for sure.
But you're coexisting.
We are coexisting. And there's white-tailed deer at quite a few of our fields too, just like a couple of them, which I don't mind them at all. We were seeing some wild turkeys also. Lots of birds, tons of bees, because we have lots more things pollinating. I mean, typically you don't have flowers that are in fields.
because of those cover crops.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So now all of our cover crops fields are turning white because of the buckwheat that's being grown in all of them. So, and then there's be sunflowers that'll start to bloom as well. So it's cool to see. Yeah, I suppose taking the dog around to those places as well is kind of fun. So even though he's a pain in the butt, but he's
well, he's a sweetheart, and he definitely wants to be a guest on this podcast based on the amount of of barking and things that we're hearing, which we love.
Yeah.
So you and your family are great educators, and you have a fantastic social media presence. Why did you choose to invest time in building that social media presence?
Yeah, I mean, it just comes back to connecting with people and our customers, really. So it's just like, so when we started the Malt House, 9 years ago, we did a field day, I think maybe the second year, and where we actually brought brewers and distillers to the field of a barley field. And 75% of those people had never been in a barley field or even knew what a barley crop looked like. And they're using the malt every single day to make beer. So it's it's crazy to see how disconnected even the brewers were when they're using that raw product every single day. So we're just kind of using that as an extension to educate people and try to get as many people to look at it and watch it as possible, and keep it lighthearted, so that people can see our personality. It's not just all seriousness either. So, I mean, my wife, Emily, she's behind all of that content, and I know it's difficult for her, but it's hard to come up with new ideas all the time. It's very time consuming. So but we think it's important just to connect with people. It's an easy way to just connect with lots of people throughout the country and the world. I know there's some people that watch it in Europe as well that we've met over the years. So it's great that you have that tool it's great. It's a curse and it's also great. So,
well, anyone listening, you can follow Todd and his family at Root Shoot Malting on Instagram. I think it's the same username on Facebook. And are you guys on TikTok or anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same things.
Okay. Spoiler alert, there is a fourth person in the room, our director of philanthropy, Elizabeth Silverman, and she was remarking as we were pulling up that we feel like we already know you because of your Todd Talks on social media, and it's just a lot of fun. So I would encourage any of our listeners to check it out.
Good footage of Thompson as well on the social media feeds.
That's right. So you recently, maybe not that recently at this point, expanded into producing your own direct-to-consumer alcohol. You're distilling. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to make that move?
I mean, a lot of it just comes back to that connection again, is actually having a product that you can tell your story to more of the public than kind of B2B. So most of our business is just business to business, where we're selling to breweries, and a lot of them do a great job of telling the story that they're purchasing grain from Colorado and supporting Colorado agriculture, but there's not this a direct to consumer product that can resonate with those people, I guess. And it also just kind of gets us another opportunity to be creative with what we're making at the Malt House. So we think we're the best malting facility in the world, and we have a lot of awards actually to back that up. And now we have awards to back up the whiskey that we're making. So we're just, it's just another tool, I think, to share what we're doing on the farm. So it's great that we actually have that, and that we actually won some awards. I mean, we were tasting it, a few years ago, and it was this is pretty good. I think it's going to be good. No, not really knowing what we're doing in the beginning. And so now we've put a lot more kind of time and effort and care into selecting what we're actually going to put into a barrel. So probably a little bit of luck out of the gates, but now that I guess it's going to be hard to repeat the success that we've had.
And if any of our listeners wanted to buy a bottle of your whiskey, where could they find it?
So if you just go to Root Shoot Spirits, there's like a whiskey finder on there, and there's a list of liquor stores, but kind of all throughout Colorado. We're not out of state, but there's one liquor store that we work with that will actually ship out of state to certain places. So.
Excellent. Everybody go buy a bottle. You will enjoy it. So when you wake up in the morning out here, what do you look forward to? What do you love most about farming?
Just growing the crops, in my opinion. So, and watching things grow, giving life to these little seeds. I think that's really great. I like during the winter when it gets cold and snowy and things like that, and just like get a little anxiety of just like, hey, I can't wait for it to warm up so we could plant something and see what grows. I mean, you only get, this is something that my dad's told me, you only get like so many harvests. You only get one harvest every year, right? So you have to like take advantage and learn as much as you can every single year about what you're doing to your field and what you're getting out of the crops and things like that. So you only have, so many harvests. So how old am I? 44? Yeah. So maybe I have, if I'm going to be as stronghold as my dad, I guess I probably have 35 or so more harvests, right? So that's not that many when you really start to think about it. So you have 35 more chances to produce a great crop and see what you can get out of it every single summer. So, I mean, there's just lots of things to love about agriculture. Just watching cows as well, right? Like we move cows in our grazing, and just being able to just, I don't think they're really thinking about much besides food and water, but they get so excited when you move them to a new paddock that they're just like, oh my gosh, there's more food over here. Yeah. And just, I don't know, spending time with my wife and the family and things like that too. Just kind of, I always try to, this is the trade-off, I guess, for social media stuff. I'm like, well, you're going to have to help me go check water, or or you have to spend the day just like driving around digging holes in fields and looking at the soil, and then I'll do a TikTok for you. So that's yeah. So I mean, and then also just connecting with customers too, and especially the ones that are like really excited about what we're doing, and just be like, man, we're making like the best beer that we've ever made. That we're making, and then it just resonates. Just seeing the success of others as well from the product that you're producing. So, and there's just lots of rewarding things from that.
Wonderful. Well, you talked a little bit about the awards that your whiskey has won. Colorado Open Lands each year awards the George E. Cranmer Award to a person in Colorado conservation that has shown transformational leadership or really just moved the needle and towards getting more conservation done. And we are so excited to be giving that award to you and your family this year, Todd, for your advocacy, everything that you do to teach more people about conservation and your own regenerative practices. So thank you very much for living up to the ideals of the Cranmer Award.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we're excited about it. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Any last parting words, anyone?
Just one thing. I just want to mention that like we're a very small team. So there's like 3 of us that work at the farm. Mm-hmm. So there's my dad, me, and then Chad. So like we're farming 1,500 acres with 3 people. Wow. And then we have the Malthouse crew that's like 7. So I think just great that we have a good team, that we all work well together, and I don't know, they just need a shout out, I think, for keeping it all together and just helping. A lot of them haven't ever been involved in agriculture either, right? Mm-hmm. That work for us at the Malthouse. So it's great to like introduce them to like the world of agriculture and have them get behind it. And I mean, their livelihood now relies on what we're growing and what we're producing. So it's awesome that they've taken that sacrifice almost to do that. Yeah.
Shout out to the Malthouse team.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Carmen, Todd, thank you so much for spending your morning with us. And that is a wrap on Landlines episode 3.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm Leslie Volker, and this has been Landlines. Upcoming episodes will feature our restoration and outreach and education work. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, contact me at lvolkar@coloradoopenlands.org. Thanks for joining us.